Hi everyone, my name's MC. I'm one of the TAs here at Texas A&M University for Invertebrate Zoology. I'm going to take us through a dissection of a polychaete worm. The polychaete worm we're going to be dissecting today is commonly called Nereis. It's from the family Nereideidae. However, an accepted name is also Alitta virens. We're going to start with external morphology. The anterior portion, we have the prostomium with associated appendages. Then following along the body, we have segments. These segments are split up by annuli at the segmental boundary. Annuli comes from the word annulus, meaning rings, also how the phylum gets its name, Annelida. On each segment, you see parapodia extending from either side of the segment, moving all the way along the body down to the posterior end. At the tail region, we see the pygidium, which is that last segment there, and associated anal cirri coming off the back here. We're now going to move on to the anterior portion and look at the head appendages. So if we can get in here close, what I'm moving back here now are the tentacular cirri. These are going to be coming from the peristomium. The prostomium is this kind of head region right here. It's triangular or octagonal in shape. Coming from the prostomium, you have two antennae right there. And then on either side of the prostomium below it, coming out terminally, are these palps, 1 and 2 palps. These dark spots on the top of the prostomium are eye spots. There's actually 4, 2 there, and then 2 kind of tucked behind there. So again, to just cover what we have from the prostomium, eyes on top of the prostomium, this triangular or kind of geometric shape with antennae coming up the front, palps on either side, and then tentacular cirri coming from here. This segment here that doesn't have parapodia associated with it is the peristomium. And then this next segment down would be your first chaetoger, as it has parapodia and chaetae associated with it. Before we move on, we're going to turn this annelid over to its dorsal side. Here we can get a different view of these appendages. Again, palps right here, and then our little antennae. This would be the mouth. The mouth of the worm leads into the pharynx, which is very muscular in this worm. And if I just peel back the mouth a little bit, you can see maybe a darkening in there. That would be where the jaws are. We'll get to those when we dissect the worm open. Now the next step I'm going to take is a cross-section of the polychaete. This can be done anywhere along the posterior midsection of the worm, and I'm basically just going to go in and cut a segment out. Then I'm going to hold this up to you as a cross-section. So what you can see here, this tube would be the gut or the intestine of the worm. Surrounding that, this space would be the coelom on the outside of the gut in here. Then we have the body wall, which in annelids is, there's a cuticle on the outside. Here we would have some longitudinal muscles. You can see those packs of longitudinal muscles. Circular muscles is going to span around this body wall, and then we have parapodium on either side. Now going to attempt to pull off a parapodia so we can see what one looks like. I'll try and get it visualized on the screen for you. So the Parapodia has a bunch of different features on it. What you're looking at here would be, this side would be the dorsal side, and down here would be the ventral. So this large flap that you can see is a dorsal ligule. This would be the notopodium up at the top, and then the neuropodium down at the bottom. All together you have a parapodia. If you can just catch it right down here, this would be a ventral cirri, kind of as a sensory appendage or sensory body tissue extending down there. And then just at the top right there, you can see its counterpart, the dorsal cirri right there. Okay. We're now going to finish up our dissection by cutting into our worm. First, what I'm going to do is pin down the side of this worm just so that it stays flat. I'm going to do this about maybe 30 to 40 segments down. Might be overestimating that. From here, I'm going to use my forceps and hold the worm, pinching a little bit and doing an incision with my scissors. From here, I'm going to put my scissors into the worm, pulling up on its back and cutting alongside the worm. Notice I'm going to cut to the right of this median line. This median line is actually the dorsal blood vessel, so I'm going to try my hardest not to puncture that as I cut. And I'm just going to cut all the way up to the top here. Once I get to the top, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to cut across. Now I'm going to use my pins and pull that body flap open. One side down, pulling across, pin that in there. This up. Then I'm going to do the same thing down here by cutting across, just so that I can pull this open for us all to see this side. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm teasing away this septa. You can see these ridges here. These are septa, which separate the segments internally. There we go. Then I'm just going to push this down. All right. Most of the internal anatomy on the polychaete is going to be towards the anterior region. Once you get past that, everything is just iterated along the entire body, and it's pretty similar. So we're going to focus at the anterior region. Again, what we saw earlier was the mouth leading into that muscular pharynx. That is this right here, this bulbous bit is the muscular pharynx. You can see these pharyngeal retractor muscles here. They're kind of thread-like. After the pharynx, we get to the esophagus, which would be this, this space right behind the bulb. Let's see if I can't tease this a little bit more and kind of get it out. There we go. So this area here would be the esophagus. It's a little lighter in color and it's a little lighter in texture. Flanking either side of the esophagus is esophageal cecum, which are these glands coming down on either side. There's one right here and then one right here. They're gray-blue in color. After the esophagus, you'd get down into the intestine, which flows this way all the way through. Going now into some circulatory systems. This line right here would be the ventral blood vessel. It's very clear and predominant. The dorsal blood vessel would have been right alongside where we cut over here. Maybe you can make it out just a little bit right there. Okay. Now moving on to some musculature. We have this longitudinal muscles here, which are these thread-like strands going along. Underneath those the long ones would be these circular muscles, which may be hard to find on the camera here, but they'd be underneath there. Nephridia, which is a almost like a waste processing center for the kidneys, would be along each segment. I don't see any right now, but they would be there. Then the last thing that I'm going to cover here is going to be the nerve cord. So that is going to be a ventral nerve cord, and it's going to run kind of parallel with the ventral blood vessel. So it's white in color, and it's going to run alongside this dorsal blood or this ventral blood vessel. Right in there. Okay. I think we've covered everything, so hope you enjoyed the polychaete dissection.